welcome. It's time once again for Catalog and Cocktails. It's your honest, no BS, non-salesy conversation about enterprise data management with tasty beverages. I'm Tim Gasper, longtime data nerd, joined by Juan Cicada. Hey, Juan.
Tim, how are you doing? It's always a pleasure to be in folks' ears, or if you're watching us too, take a break out of your day and just listen to us and listen to our amazing guests, and let's chat and learn about data. And today, I'm really excited about our guest, Arielle Rolland, who is a data and AI strategy manager, a true data product enthusiast. And she's one of those people that when we ask people like who should we invite next, her name came up multiple times. And you may not see a lot of her stuff like on LinkedIn, on socials, but she does have really key articles that I've read around data products for a while. And it's one of those people, that they're quiet, but they're the small amount of really important people are following her. So this is great. I'm glad that we have the possibility to chat with you. How are you doing?
Very good, very good. And it's so nice to be on the podcast. I guess it's been a couple of years now that I've been listening to it. So feels a little bit of a dream coming true.
Well, it is always it is so cool, and it's a huge honor to be able to have guests who have been following us for so long. And at the end of the day, we do this because of folks like you, and then it's just the whole circle, and the community starts giving back together, and that's the most important thing. So, but hey, tell and toast. What are we drinking and what are we toasting for today, or what is your favorite drink, depending on what time of the day it is if you're not drinking?
No, and I will definitely be a boring one. I've got a hot chocolate that I've prepared just because I have a race coming up, so I'm on a no alcohol diet.
But
what hot chocolate will do.
Okay, but what is your favorite? I'm curious. What's your favorite go-tos?
A friend of mine who is a bartender actually showed me a Cover Club. So it's like a raspberry, and I think it's based out of gin cocktail. And it tends to be not the cocktail you find on the normal cocktail catalog, but always a nice one to ask for.
All right. Tim, how about you?
So I don't have a cocktail at the moment, unfortunately, but I'll give a shout out to what I was drinking last night when I was in New York City. I was having a Scotch and ginger beer. So that was sort of tasty offshoot of like a Kentucky mule or something like that. What would that be? Like a Scottish mule? I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. That should be a Scottish mule. Well, actually, so I have a little bit of rum. So this is rum abuelo and some sparkling water. This is a new one, a blackberry cucumber. And it's actually refreshing. A nice, refreshing.
I made that flavor.
No, so this is good. So, anyways, well, cheers. What are we toasting for today? What are we toasting for?
I think having the chance to finally meet in person, and or at least virtually, but
yes, to me, we need more time to be able to actually hang out and have these discussions. So cheers to meet in person.
Cheers.
All right, so a lot to discuss, and let's just hit the ground running. Honest, no BS. How are we overcomplicating all of this data product stuff?
Yep. So I think there has been a lot of the work that I've done over the past 4 years now that I've been living and breathing data products. And especially, I think, for organizations such as Accenture, whenever we get involved in large, transformation program, we tend to think big, and our clients tend to think big. So then we tend to build what we call, those big data factory or data product factory. I think the more I have experienced those data factories, the more I'm thinking, actually, we should start small, build the trust, build the value, small, and then expand over time. And so I'm slowly changing the narrative, even in my small world, I guess.
So we always want to. So we think big, but we're not starting small. Is this? I think this is a common pattern that we see a lot. And so what are the things that you start seeing that are like the big things? So we were thinking big, and what are the things that people start doing that are big? The first things that you should say, like, that's exactly what we should stop.
Yeah, and I think what I tend to see is, especially, we try to build a platform. Build the data product on the platform, trying to engage with the business and get the business to adopt the platform all at once, doing the governance around it. Whereas I kind of think that we should actually start by making sure that the platform has the minimum services and capabilities then you can start onboarding your data engineering and maybe even just focusing on getting the data in or ingesting the right data set. And then once you understand, okay, once you have the good data lake foundation, I guess, then this is when you say, okay, what are the use cases that I want to enable first? Who are my business users that you'd like to have on the platform first? And then I think doing all of those work stream or I guess stream of work at the same time tends to fail, and you tend to multiply the number of months and years that you're building that core data platform instead of just doing small pieces of work at once, or at least sequentially. And I think maybe the second point that I tend to and I had a lot of conversation on this, especially in the data management leadership community, but then also with some of my other friends, has been the concept of agility. And we all try to be agile in the world of data and AI, and what does it mean to be agile? And I think in some instances, I strongly believe that going for a waterfall approach will drive more results because, for example, when we try to implement a centralized data platform, then we know what we're talking about. We know what are the capabilities. We know what needs to be done. We know how long it takes to build the services and configure the services. So I don't think the agility is required, and I don't think that's a good use case for applying agility.
Oh, there's an honest no BS right there.
Yeah. Juan, I'm thinking about you. You always talk about ordinary truths and profound truths. And this could be a profound truth here because the opposite is a bit right now embraced very heavily, right? People talk a lot about agility and a lot about sprint-based approaches to iterate. You're talking about sometimes waterfall is the right thing. Can you go into that a little bit more? Like what does that mean? And a lot of times people think waterfall, they think that's going to take longer, right? And you just talked about how we need to make sure you take a smaller bite at your at the value. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yes, and the interesting enough, the first time I actually was looking into the concept of data product was because we were doing a lot of waterfall delivery where we wanted to put together that I guess cloud environment where there was already all of the data model in there, that the services were enabled, but then there was a 2 or 3 years roadmap, and the business would only see the value after 2 or 3 years. So then that's when we looked at the product management setup, and then we thought, okay, maybe we should actually try to look at what are those incremental business value that we can enable. And so, yes, of course, we're talking about the agility, and we were looking at SAFe, and we enabled SAFe, I think, in the right way. But then that's because when we were looking at the waterfall approach, it was over 2 or 3 years. I'm not saying that waterfall needs to be that long. I think I'm saying that we can do waterfall in shorter incrementals, but then getting those steps completed and with the right artifact. I think we tend to forget, especially when agility, we tend to forget some of the core, let's say, artifact in the sense of we no longer have design documents. So we don't really know for example, what the platform contains and how it is done. We don't have the operational manual to help with onboarding the right people. We don't even have a good set of requirements that are documented in the right way. So I think all of those core artifacts that you would have in traditional project management and that you will have when you do waterfall tends to be forgotten in agility. So I'm saying let's adopt waterfall, but then in a smaller time frame, which is not 2 or 3 years, but probably a good 3 months or 6 months. But at least we know what the plan is, who is owning what activities, and who is delivering what during that time frame. And I feel like the value that we'll deliver from this will be as good as or even better than if we were trying to do, I guess, applying this agile ways of working.
Interesting. So I hear you kind of saying that when you over embrace an agile approach, then you can fall into a trap. And it sounds like there's two traps that can happen. One is not laying the proper foundation. It sounds like there's a category around that. And then it seems like a second trap is more around the fact that I'm going to call it broadly like the enablement aspect of making something successful, where if you are trying to bring a data product to the stakeholders, if you didn't if when you were building it, you didn't really know who owned what and the best way to do it and what's the right architecture. And then when you're actually trying to deliver it, who's it for? What does success look like? Are we going to keep on investing in it to improve it versus just move on to the next data product? Am I thinking of it the right way? Are those kind of the two traps you're thinking about? And are there other things?
I think they are also the people and collaboration aspect that we tend to forget. I think we are hoping that if we do agile, then the collaboration will always be there, or that's something that is a little bit more natural. But then if we try to do, I think, waterfall, and if we have some very key milestone that you would find in the waterfall approach, then that will also force people to validate. That will also force people to review, to get involved in some of those aspects, because once it's set on stone for that given time frame, or once we've done, okay, we are doing scope gathering or requirement gathering, then people will know that if they wanted to really be involved in that phase of work, then this is the time frame it is happening between, for example, January and March, and they can reach out to the right individual and then get involved. Then once this is done, then they know what is expected next. And I think that sort of also forced that collaboration, and that can be a little bit more proactive from one side to the other. So there is also that people enablement part, which to me, waterfall can also doesn't. I guess it's interesting because it doesn't feel like it, but then that can also enable the right structure for people to get involved.
But one could argue that having waterfall in shorter timeframes, that is agile.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But I think what you're actually presenting here is, or what you want to drive for is that you want this to be predictable. Like you just said something really very insightful for me, is like, by making this predictable, I know that in this time frame, in this month, if you want to get involved in this part, like now you know that we should be hitting that at that time, and then other people can do the planning around that. Well, so therefore, it's not just product management, but also, again, tied to it, it's project management, the timing around these things, accountability, who needs to be involved, having a whole RICE matrix around this stuff. Well, if you're probably thinking about things in pure agile software development, a lot of that stuff is more focused on the technical side and less on like who are the people that need to be involved from an enablement, from a go-to-market, from that type. And I think that kind of gets lost when you put that agile mentality, that hat on, which is more, again, software technical, and you need that, but there's also the other things if you're truly going to treat data as a product.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you. I think, the concept of agility in software is because you're delivering features, and it's because you are testing something that is, as you said, super technical. I've been asked, so I've done a lot of data governance initiatives, and I've been asked to run data governance as if it was a product as well. And I think sometimes things just take time. So when you try to roll out data ownership, for example, it's not a sprint. You can't really measure the success in one sprint. There are things that takes time, and then you can plant the seed in someone's mind about taking on a certain role around the data, but it may actually be flourishing, I guess, in 6 months' time. And so we are trying in the data and AI space. Yes, there is the technology aspect, but there is also the people aspect. And then there's also developing the process around, and those things probably are a little bit more challenging to apply the real methodology behind agility and SAFe. But I like the idea of, as you said, right, that in the software, it's about the technology enablement. So yes, you can apply agility because it's features. It doesn't involve as much as the people aspect.
So coming back to data products, what do you feel like you've seen all these things go wrong, right? What do you think is the right way to approach data products, right? And I'm curious about that, both at the kind of the macro level, because it sounds like you're thinking a little bit about like you've got to set the right foundation. Obviously you shouldn't try to boil the ocean. You should pick a few to start with, right? And then I'm also curious about like a data product itself. Like, do you have a view on what makes for a good data product?
It's a good question, and It's interesting. I had an interview last year, and as part of the interview, the person asked me, "Okay, what's your definition of a data product?" And and then I said, I don't think it's about the definition, and I think we tend to all agree, right? People will always have one unique definition. And then the response I got back was, "No, the definition is." And then the person has given me his own definition. I was like, "You literally just proved my point." But I guess to me is more, I guess there is always two routes, right? If we look at the literature, and I'm very textbook in that sense, and I like to do research and I like to read a lot. So just always basing my knowledge on back on the book, on the books. It's like a social technological concept, right? So then you can look at it from, okay, do you want to take the technical route or technological route, or then do you want to take the social route, so the people and organization part? But I think the real success of data product is right in the middle. Is yes, you can start on one way, but then you will always have to bring the other factor and the other dimension to make it successful. Because I don't think we are revolutionizing the way we're doing data engineering. I think data engineering in that note is pretty mature, and we have some good standards in place and some good ways of working. But then it's also about making the data engineering work accessible to the people who don't have the right knowledge, and also to be able to link it to some real value, because of course it's always the value measurement piece. Before, we were in a world where no one was asking us for what's my return on investment on my data and AI use cases. And then now we're in a world where today it's all about, okay, why should I spend money on you? Why should I spend money on your use case? What's my return? And I think there is now that justification that the data and AI teams in general needs to make. So to me, data product does answer the question of, and I guess it's about making that data engineering leasable or readable to the business, and then also making sure that the business can understand it and use it, and towards one common goal, and the common goal being some real value back to either a consumer or the business itself.
So I want to dive into, if we can get like a very specific example, or your brainstorming would do this, where we compare how data products being done in an agile way versus done in a waterfall, short kind of pieces. How would that look like if we could just take the same example? Because I mean, I want people listening to actually let's have them take something really tangible.
Okay, so applying. I think I will try to get a. I think maybe we should talk about the different type that there is of data products.
Okay.
Because I do think that will impact on how you want to apply agility.
Perfect.
And I think for me, there is the pure data engineering data products. It's literally tables. It's pieces of it's tabular tables that you can find in a large databases. If I want to put very simple words onto it,
yep.
Where if you want to query it or if you want to access the data, then you need a little bit of technical skills to access it. You need some type of SQL or some type of coding to just extract and have that visibility. I think that's one very generic type of data product. Then, of course, you have more of what I would call the analytical data product, where it's a little bit more user-friendly. There is a dashboard onto it, so a way to a nice UI. So then there is a way for people to read the data without even having to code anything. And so based on those two, you can see there is one which is very heavy, because very data engineering heavy. So then the way you will construct and the way you will develop and mature your data product will have to take into account the technology constraint, the data engineering practices. Whereas from an analytical data product perspective, then you have all of the UI, UX, aspect of it, where you're involved a lot more of the business, and there are additional features around it where you will need that collaboration with the business to really understand, one, how do they read the data? For example, if it's a business analyst that can build a dashboard, You probably don't need to pre-create the dashboard and add all of the filters and create. They can do it on your behalf. But if you talk to a leadership who doesn't have time to build the dashboard and doesn't have the skill sets to do so, then you'll need to spend a lot more time building the UI, and the dashboard may not even be the right answer to them. They just want to get an email. And in that case, you'll need to create the email automation process where once a day they get that data, and the data is already formatted in the way that when they read the email, it says, today your sales has increased by X%. And that's all they want to see. And that's okay. And I think that's the beauty of the data product, is you need to adjust it to your consumer. So then going back, I guess the fact that we have two different data products, what's super interesting is the velocity at which you will change your data product. And that's where, for me, agility comes into play, is that, for example, on some of those core data engineering data products, and it's a mouthful of a term, you will have, for example, those fact tables, which change constantly. And I think, we know that there is some seasonal trends when you go, for example, grocery shopping for Christmas tends to be a lot more sales. So then those seasonal trends and how the data is shaped and behaving then might change, and you may have some data shift and so on. So then this will need to be maybe monitored fairly closely, and some of the features may change maybe on the seasonal level. But then you may have master data or reference data. Let's call it, for example, country information. They barely change. So then you don't need to update, and you don't need to apply that agility, the framework around agility that often, or the project management toolkit, let's call it, that often. You may want to just look into it once every 6 months, because you've noticed that there may be some new country information that has been added. So I think there is that nuance. And then same for the analytical product. Yesterday, I was joining a session, I guess, by the data product management leadership community, and they keep talking about the dashboard graveyard. And I really like this, right? Is the fact that you have, I don't know how many thousands of dashboards in an organization, and that one leader come in, they commission a dashboard. You may not need it afterwards, so you plug in, plug out. And I think, to me, the data product doesn't really move that close, but then the visual, the UI, the UX will change. And so I think we all know that those dashboards may be relevant for 3 months, but then you may have a new one in 3 months later. So I think it's this ability to switch, but to always continuously listen and be open and understand what your business consumer really wants. And that's okay if your dashboard is being decommissioned, right? That's not the point.
I appreciate the level of detail. First of all, you separated these two things, and the level of detail you want to describe them. This is something that that Tim and I hear a lot too. We see those same two types of categories of them. I guess when you talk sometimes to the very data product purists, they will say the analytical ones are not, dashboards are not things. But I'm like, heck, you got to meet the consumers where they are. If that's what they want, then you still have, if you treat it with data product mentality, then they'll have a life cycle, and then there will be a graveyard, because you know that you deliberately put that stuff out there and you decommissioned it, right? So then you think so. But you highlighted these two. Wouldn't the analytical data products be then built always on top of the pure data engineering core products?
Yeah, they are very interconnected, right? The lineage between those two, for sure. And I think one of them the few criteria just to differentiate those ones, to me, is reusability. I think when you talk about those core data products, ideally they should be highly reusable. They should be a node in the constellation that represents your industry or your domain. And so those ones should answer thousands of different, okay, I'm maybe exaggerating, but a good amount of your use cases. Whereas if you look at your analytical product, they are quite targeted, and they tend to focus on one specific value stream. and they bring a dollar sign, or it's directly linked to a specific pot of money that is being generated in the business. One is whereas I guess so that reusability, one of them you can very easily measure the value because it's close to the business. The other one a little bit less, but then you can see that it contributes and is the backbone of a lot of those different analytical. So one I don't think can live without the other. They're very complementary. But then of course, so then reusability is the first criteria. People who can own it is also different. You may want to have someone that is fairly technical and doesn't understand the entire business as long as he had the right connection to the different, I guess, data product owners on the analytical side. So then there's always that collaboration between what do you need? Okay, do you need now the data to be near real time? Great, let's see if we can make that happen. But at least they need to understand the technicality. Whereas if you're close to the business on the analytical side, then of course the skill set will be different. So I think trying to understand what makes those two products different and how do you choose them. And I talked about velocity, right? And velocity also being a different factors on how you should manage those two type of products. So I think there are a few factors in. Oh, I don't know if it's my.
Oh, you're good.
Yeah.
We're good.
Am I back online?
We continue to hear you. No, you haven't left. You're good.
Yeah.
So then let's start with going back to my original question. Let's go through some data engineering, a pure data engineering data product, and let's go through an example of how it would be in an agile way and in a waterfall short way, where you would like truly see that the the short approach is actually superior to a pure agile approach.
Yeah, and that's I mean, and I did forget the question, so thank you for reminding me. But I think to me, so much in the data product space, but of course it is related to. I think it was the data and AI, so like especially on the platform side, that I think waterfall is very strong. Enablement side, I think if I were to look at the delivery of a data product. I would say, I think as long as there is a clear direction and a clear vision on where this data product is going towards, and that we have the right, I think there is a series of prerequisites in order for us to enable agility. So making sure that there is the right owners, that there is an understanding of the different use cases in the industry that this data product can potentially enable, that there is a good understanding of the consumers, and that there is a lot of emphasis on the user research part. And that's where I think we talk about data product management or product management. Product management always starts with user research. And I think in my experience, most of the time, we sort of push upon us a name of a data product to say, you need to deliver this data product, without actually saying those are the use cases or those are the people that you need to talk to understand whether they are value and can we involve them in the design of the data product. So maybe waterfall in this case will help us to say, okay, we'll time box and say we'll do discovery. And I think, I guess Nick Zervoudis would agree with me. He spends a lot of time talking about discovery. I think this is important. We need to time box to say we'll spend X amount of weeks or maybe a month to talk to our stakeholders and really understand what's the features that our data product will require. Maybe that's where waterfall would actually be useful compared to agility, where we try to build fast and we try to fail fast. Great. But maybe if you would have spent 1 sprint or 2 sprints doing a little bit more user research, then you wouldn't have failed that fast. But then I'm not saying that fail fast is bad, but then I'm thinking maybe we can fail smart rather than fail fast. So
yeah, you going through this makes me think about things not just for data teams, but also for general creation of products. And I think that for the people that really are doing agile well, if they were listening to this conversation, they would say like, Oh, well, because that's not how you're supposed to do agile. Like you're still supposed to plan. You're still supposed to do like all this, kind of stuff, right? Is it fair to say that just a lot of teams are doing agile wrong? Like like does everybody just kind of think, maybe data teams included, right, that like agile is just, oh, you do sprints and you try to make product every 2 weeks.
And you won't-
Do
yeah.
people just kind of assume that's what agile is?
I think so. I think I'm in that opinion. I think we are not yet truly understanding of how that really works out. Yeah.
That's something we gotta
And
fix.
yeah, and funny enough, I think I keep saying, so I've been doing a lot of role definition. Like, what does a data product owner should do? What is a data product manager should do? And I always say, for example, for a data product owner, they are not delivery lead as such. They're not meant to just focus on the delivery. Actually, to me, the good split is you do 60% planning and strategy, and then 40% on, I guess, even, and people who disagree with that split, but and 40% on the delivery. But and it's the same issue for people who are working as a product owner in software. They always say, we don't have enough time to do the planning and to do the strategy.
Mhm.
But I think the split should be 60-40 with some support from a tech lead or someone more technical to help on the delivery side. But yeah, I think I tend to agree.
Yeah, no, I think we're aligned there. But a problem is then data product owners or data product managers or whatever their title is. Even same with like product managers, right? If you go back to software, a lot of times they say, "But I'm too busy. There's so much work to do. I don't have time to talk to all my stakeholders and stuff like that. I have to make sure the engineering team has all the tickets and they're all well written and we story pointed everything and is this just a
Yeah.
matter of priorities? Maybe we got to hire more product managers. Like
Well,
maybe
actually,
organizations don't have enough.
where do you think then the role of AI agents to be able to go help scale this out? Is
Yeah.
this something that you're seeing this happen? You think it's people are playing around with it, but it's not working? Wishful thinking. I mean, what are your thoughts about it? Because I get it. I mean, it's all about how can we do more with less and clone ourselves. I mean, more hours in the day and
I don't
yada
know.
yada
There's
yada.
only
Right?
however many work hours there are,
Yeah,
right?
but we do have now. I mean, we're seeing all of this AI and these agents. This stuff is working, right? I mean, it's actually working, arguably even better for things that are not so specific, quantitative, like things that can be much more somewhat open ended. I think it's actually better. It fits better for that. So I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, and yeah, it's those type of questions I'm actually looking into at the moment, on my spare time. It's mostly okay, where based on if you look at all of the roles and I guess the responsibilities and the activities that the data product owner should do, then what are the ones that could either be automated by an agent or which one could in the future be automated, and where you just need the data product owner to just validate or confirm that this is correct. I think the opportunities are, one, on the user research, value realization, I guess just doing initial survey, market scan, market research. And one of the tools that I was looking at with, I guess I was having some conversation with, which is, I don't know if you know about Delight from Mindfuel. I think they are very strong in looking at how do they implement GenAI in that bucket. How do you link the business use case to data products, and how do you do the valuation, and then trying to understand the different risks. So I think all of this can very much be, having a first draft can be automated through a GenAI, and I think that tool does it really well, or at least I've done a first draft very well. And then of course there's all of the creating the user stories and helping with shaping the backlog and helping with the prioritization, and then also helping with for example, the cost assessment. So if you were to do a chargeback model or some type of financial modeling on the top of your data product because you're trying to monetize it, those are the things that you can sort of try to enable through GenAI. I'm not saying it's easy. I think there is a lot of underlying data, especially your metadata model, that is so critical in order to do all of that in the first place. But across, I think, especially on on doing the initial assessment and helping on the strategic side could help. So then instead, maybe if you cannot swap that proportion of time, so if you still have to do 60% on delivery and 40% on planning, then maybe that 60% on the planning can be done by AI, I would assume, I would hope. And even ChatGPT, I've always spent some time just talking to ChatGPT and trying to understand what summary or what insight ChatGPT can give me. Super easy tool to use with public knowledge, but then at least it can educate me on some of the trends based on the data that I'm working with.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I'm finding that AI doesn't yet replace having your conversation with a key stakeholder, right? And hopefully it never 100% does. But like you take that transcript or your notes and you feed it to, an LLM, and it synthesizes it for you. You can say, hey, analyze this feedback based on what you're seeing in the market. And, there's a lot of ways that you can use AI to accelerate that process. And ideally, the same is true, not just with the planning side, but also the delivery side. Like, can it help me to write my tickets? Obviously now it's helping write code. So, it can help you make a go-to-market enablement plan. So I think those are ways that, when we're cash constrained, when we're resource constrained, that, AI tools are starting to become more readily available in our companies. You should use them.
Well, I started thinking that every employee will become a manager of all these little agents. I mean, you have one product manager will have all these tasks, and you'll be able to have an agent that is specialized in that specific task, right? That's why it gets better on these things, and you'll be coordinating, right? So these are all different things that you have to go do, and now something else is doing it, getting you 50%, 80% there. You still need to kind of wrap it up and put it all together. So I feel that we actually have the opportunity now to kind of truly connect faster data to value, because we're able to get to this planning delivery phase faster, and actually not just focus on delivery, but doing more of this planning, the strategy. So that's
yeah.
I'm excited. I'm really excited about where this is going to go, and hopefully we're going to go start seeing more of this sooner than later. What else, before we kind of go to our lightning round, what else do you feel that people should be thinking about differently? Because you started out with a profound thing, right? Which is like, go do more waterfall and less agile, right? Which is what doesn't sound like the typical thing that you'd be hearing, right? So I really appreciate you being honest, no BS on this. What other thing do you think people need to be listening to, or change their minds, or thinking about things differently?
Yeah, and I think maybe 2 points. I think number one was I think we are good at delivering data products, doing the first wave we are building the first version of your data product. I think the hardest part is to actually either mature it, but even harder, and that we're not very good at, is decommissioning, retiring, and removing it out of the market. I think we are so scared of, what's the impact? People will shout. And I think one of the tests that we have done on my first, I guess when we were looking at data product in my very early years of data products, was to do scream test. What we literally did is we shut down and plug out a bunch of tables and assets, and then we waited for people to shout. And you'll be surprised, actually, not that many people shout, because they're not using it anymore. So I think, I was talking to a friend of mine in Canada who was working for a company where once every quarter, they would kill 20% of their data product. The lowest 20% would just be either it'll be refactored in some way, merged with something else, or entirely retired. Because they said, if it's at the bottom of 20%, it means we don't need it. Which I think it's a rule of thumb, right?
I love that. That's great. Yeah, this is where everybody listening right now should be asking: if you're delivering these data products, how much are you killing? How much are you decommissioning?
Yeah,
it probably should be more.
Yeah, if you don't have enough time, it's because you got too many data products you're maintaining.
Yeah, why 20? Probably 50. All right.
Yeah.
I love this.
some of the sometimes you read use cases, and there was one I was reading, which was some company was very proud of having 800 and so data products. I'm thinking, do we really need 800 data products? How many data product managers do you have, and how much value do they all bring? I think that's not something you should be proud.
I am a fan of, I mean, there's the Pareto principle, 80-20. The one is Dunbar's number, which is 150, right? Even that's a lot too, but that's a number that for company wide, 150. I mean, it's a Dunbar's number. So 150 is always a number that things change. So, all right. There's another thing you wanted to add?
Yeah, maybe, and then I'll be super quick. I think it's, and I've written a very hard, I guess, to me it was quite important. It's all about like taxonomy and data modeling. And I think, so the article I wrote back then was where the data modelers and the depth of the data modelers and the depth of data architecture. And I think I am not seeing a lot of people talking about making sure that they spend sufficient amount of time on modeling the data in a way that is reusable. And I think having at least data architects that understand the domains is so important, and they are lacking. And those experts are definitely not very popular anymore. So I would say that's definitely one of those trends that I see is organizations should actually spend a lot more time trying to build a data model or a domain model that can be reusable.
Third podcast this week where this topic has come up, and I think it's the rise of in fact, like the data librarians are learning from or all this information science and data modeling, and so this I think predict a little bit of what's coming next. We've had the data scientist, the data engineer, the data analyst. I think this whole data modeling and just the whole knowledge is going to be the critical thing, especially because of AI. Yeah. But all right, lightning round questions. Here we go. Number one. What's one biggest challenge for teams trying to make data products?
The people skills. Do you need to elaborate or no?
No, if you want, give it a little context.
I think I will keep it open.
Perfect. The people and the people skills. All right. Number two, which is worse? Data teams over engineering things or data teams under engaging the business?
Oh, I will take on the business one. Okay. Yeah.
All right. Next one. Are formal data product owners or data product managers necessary to create data products?
No.
Okay, expand on that a little bit.
Juan's like, I can't accept only a no.
No, that's great. I like it because expand on that a little bit.
No, but I think there is very good delivery lead that does data product or they apply product management practices. They are technical engineers that are really good at doing this too because they understand the solution inside out and they have the right conversation. But they're not named data product owners or they're not named data product managers, and that's okay. Mm-hmm. And that's okay not to call your data product a data product too. I think.
I love it. Oh man, there's so many.
It's okay not to call
t-shirt.
Your data
That's a good
product.
t-shirt. It's okay for data product. It's not called a data product. Oh. To our future one day t-shirt store, Tim.
A t-shirt store. There's gonna be 1,000 t-shirts in there.
I believe in it. I'm still waiting for that.
Me too. We'll see if maybe ServiceNow will let us open a new business line, our fashion business line. All right. Final lightning round question. Should there always be less pure data engineering data products than analytical data products?
I don't know. It feels like a greater than or smaller than. No, I would say the other way around. Actually. That is, you try. I think this is a
this is a tricky one. I wrote this question. Tim always writes the question. I wrote this one because for me the answer is yes. because you're saying like it should be the constellation, right? There's like this one thing, and then this all comes out of all these other ones. This should be reusable. But I'm curious if you're debating this. What?
I'm
Yeah, what are
seeing
you weighing?
I'm seeing a network. So that constellation to me is not so much of a going one way, the other way. I don't know. I'm struggling to see it because I feel like one can fit the other, and there is so many interlink between all of them.
All right, fair point. This needs more thought. Okay, this is
Well, you call it data products too,
this is
right?
the conversation we will have next time we're in person after your run, and we'll have a drink and we'll have a cocktail.
So maybe our listeners can think about that too.
Yeah.
You know, pure data engineering data products versus analytical data products. Which one should be more than the other? It's an interesting question.
All right, takeaway times. Tim, take us away with takeaways. We got so much.
All right. Well, we started off with honest no BS. How are we overcomplicating data products? And you started off by saying that from your own experiences being involved in a lot of these large transformation projects, many of them lately that are now involving data products because people are excited about data products. That's probably the buzzword of or excitement phrase, if we want to be nicer to it, of 2025. And you said that a lot of times these big projects, they go big, they think big, they become complex. You were building a data product factory. And what happens is that at the end of it, you don't get the value that you expected. And really what you should have done is started small. But, and this is where I think you said something surprising that's actually very interesting for our listeners to think about is you would think that maybe going big meant that it was too waterfall-y. But actually, you're saying it was not waterfall-y enough. It was an overly agile approach that ultimately did not result in business results. And what you actually need to do is embrace the concept of agility a little less in some of these cases, because we are not focusing enough on laying the right foundation. We are not focusing enough on investing in kind of the enablement around these things. The people and collaboration was a big aspect that you talked about, that you need to properly spend the time on that, know what's expected, have the people enablement, and think about things like governance and metadata. And a lot of these things aren't going to happen if all you're doing is taking just a pure agile approach around data products. It sounds like just a new way to kind of build a data swamp, just a different kind of data swamp. And so we then started to get a little bit into what makes for a good data product initiative and a good data product. You said that data products are the combination of the social and the technical, and the real success is where those two things meet. It's in the middle. And we're not revolutionizing the way that we do data engineering. We have good ways to work as data engineering teams, but we need to link that work to real value. And that's where the data products really come in. They help make it clear the visible value to the business, the ROI, and make sure that it's understandable, because data teams are being held now to a higher account about the things that you're investing your time in, your people in, your money in. You can't just spend millions of dollars on Snowflake and not be held to like, what is that going towards? Like, right. And so I think that's a good thing. It means that we're maturing as a function within the organization. And then you talked about a couple of different kinds of data products, more of the pure data engineering data products, which might be a table in a database that you need, and you need more technical skills to use it, right? It could be a SQL query, it could be Python, some kind of code maybe, right? But ideally it's reusable, right? It's modeled, and I know we'll talk more about modeling towards the end. And then there's analytical data products, which are more user-friendly. Could be a dashboard, could be even like you mentioned, like an email that goes to somebody that says, hey, your sales went up. This is more of a targeted on a specific value stream, and it's easier to measure the value. It's closer to the business. All right, Juan, over to you. What were your big takeaways?
So we go into the whole agile versus kind of the short waterfall approach. And it's important to understand the two types of products that is going to affect this approach. And things that you need to be able to consider, like this is the data product management, right? Consider the requirements. Who is it for? Does it have to be real time? The way do you have, how do you want to provide this data? Consider the enablement. How is this going to be successful? Because in product management, always this starts with user research instead of like, hey, let's just start building out this data product. So in a waterfall approach, like you this short waterfall approach, you will have you'll time box the discovery to go do all these things and planning and when to go do the enablement and who's going to execute all that stuff, right? And I think traditionally when we think about agile today, it ends up being more feature technical oriented and it's more about failing fast. But what we should really be doing is failing smart about it. Now, arguably, folks may think that this is more that agile is more about like generating features fast. But I think Tim's position was like, if this is agile done right, so in a way, like if you do agile right, you are doing this kind of short-term waterfall approach. But people end up thinking about what agile as being much more technical and just kind of generating features, and hence your position of why this should be more of the waterfall approach, short waterfall approach. Data product owners should be 60% focused on strategy, 40% on delivery, not 100% on delivery. And now we have kind of this tension, like this back and forth of like, we don't have enough time. And I think we did go into this, like how we think AI is going to be able to help automate parts of this product management. Things like user research, connecting the business value, defining what is the risk around this stuff, creating the user stories, shaping the backlog, even doing some initial financial modeling for our chargeback model. So it's going to be a huge opportunity how this is going to accelerate. And then a couple more things you close with. One is we are good at delivering the first wave of data products. We're bad to mature it, right? We're terrible at retiring data products. People will be mad. They will shout. Like, actually do the scream test. Remove the tables and see who shouts. Usually no one does. Or kill 20% of your data products if it's about 20%, the bottom 20%. You just don't need it. And don't be proud if you have hundreds of 800 data products. Don't be proud about that. Actually, you should be ashamed of yourself. Number two thing you close out with is that where are the data modelers? We need to have more time modeling the data, hiring people in modeling and taxonomies and semantics and ontology, spending more time to making these things reusable domain models. And this is kind of this rise that we're seeing of these, call it data librarians or knowledge scientists and so forth. All right. Well, how do we do? Anything we missed?
No, I think wow, what a summary.
No, again, that was all you. So to wrap up, 3 questions. What's your advice? Who should we invite next? And what resources do you follow?
Okay, I'll go for maybe resource tool that I follow. Lately, I've been really, really enjoying the Modern Data 101 community. I think he's been a lot of good thinking on it, where there's tons of people contributing to it. So I would definitely advise people to have a look at those articles. 2 is probably who I'm thinking to invite next, or that I would recommend following is my good friend Alex Gonchi. He has a longer last name, but then he's been a lot on data product and data mesh enablement. He's my technical partner in crime in the space. So even if we are mostly friends, we tend to geek out on data mesh and data product. He's a great guy to talk to. Then my advice is, lately I've been looking a lot on the metadata model, and I think my advice would be I would kick off with building your metadata model as soon as you can. So then, if you want to be ready to enable, I guess, data product at scale, and then start to be AI ready with your I guess what they call the contextual data. Then I think metadata has actually a lot of power, and building that metadata model is probably a good starting point. And I will keep it super loose because I think metadata means anything and everything.
I feel like we have our second episode that we need to do with you queued up already.
I like this, and then
metadata model, it's everything.
It's the music to our ears, but. Arielle, thank you so much. I really appreciate going into having these profound truths, honest, no BS discussions. This is what we're here for. And thank you for being a listener for so long. And thank you so much for joining us and for sharing all of your knowledge and wisdom with everybody.
No, and thank you for having me. And it was such a pleasure.
All right. Cheers.
Cheers.